Hello, good day. Welcome to Amplify, the podcast series by the Association for Accounting Marketing. My name is Chuck Summers, and I'm the Practice Growth Executive with MCM CPAs and Advisors. I'm your host for today's session. If you like this podcast, please remember to be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Joining me today is Rebecca Weiand. She is the growth specialist for Rea Associates. And is the 2018 Association for Accounting Marketing Volunteer of the Year. So many of you should recognize her, or at least be familiar with her name. Rebecca has been a member of AIM since 2013, and Rebecca has given her time tirelessly and her talents to the role of chair of the AIM's Member Growth Committee, from welcoming new members to working with other committees to developing innovative member appreciation and satisfaction programs. Rebecca helps AIM achieve its goals of providing quality content and value to its members. At Rea, she works with a lot of data, provides analytic reports and supports to help guide the firm's overall marketing strategy, and manages the firm's social media strategy since 2013. Rebecca, welcome to Amplify today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Chuck. Thank you.
Sure. I think the topic should be of interest to the audience. We're talking about your data is talking, are you listening? Yep. Data is obviously on the top of many of our minds. So Rebecca, why don't you just begin by sharing a little bit about how you work with data every day at Rea Associates. But then we've all heard about data. With respect to an accounting firm, where is this data coming from? I mean, what are the sources of the data?
Sure. Well, so I do a lot with our client data. And so it's one of the aspects of the data I'm looking at. Also looking at like industry trends and kind of understanding the market and what's popular, what's hot. And then spend a lot of time looking at kind of our website and our social media stats. And that's another portion of the data that I look at. So that's kind of among those are the areas I'm looking. To start with, we'll go with the client data. What's really nice is we have that information already. I'm sure most of us, especially a lot of in the firms, have client data in their time and billing system. And whenever we enter in a new client or customer, we're putting in just basic information, but can be very helpful. And what I mean by that is we're putting in basic information about the person, the company name, where it's located. But it's good to also put in the basic stats about the business, from size, like number of employees, revenue. And then another little bit of tidbit information we add with our clients is what we call an NICS code. It's kind of like a business category code. And if you put that information in there, you can do a lot more research to better understand your customer data. As most firms, we all talk about how we specialize in certain industries, whether it's manufacturing, not-for-profit. But what's really nice is kind of taking that information and going a little bit deeper to understand, if you're having your partners or managers or principals put in size of the company, revenue size, you can say, well, we work really well with manufacturers that are, this size with this many employees, and that's kind of our specialty. And it's a great way to market that. And like I said, that's already there in time and billing. And I think another important key to put in there is what I mentioned is that NICS code. What that is basically a business category, and it's broken out into 6 digits, and then each group of digits means something else. So for example, for manufacturers, every business needs an NICS code. So manufacturers are generally, their NICS code starts with the 31, 32, or 33. And then it breaks it down even further. So once you understand, okay, well, we have this, the first 2 digits explain manufacturing or non-for-profit or government. And then the next 2 get a little more specific, and then the last 2 get even more specific. So you can find out, hey, we actually, based on these 6-digit codes, we have, out of 100 manufacturing clients, we have 50 that are in cheese manufacturing. We have a really good specialty. And to your customers, that might be important, or to your clients, that would be important, because you can say, I understand your specific needs. I understand what, because we have 50% of our manufacturers are cheese manufacturers. So then again, that's all information that's just put in right from the beginning when you enter in a new client. And it's, little work on the end. If you were already putting that information in there, what's a couple different additional fields that you can ask as that client gets in there that can help you a little bit later on. And then that way you can pull data, understand the client a little bit better. I also mentioned, we use a lot of research and trends. There's list source out there that can definitely share information about the industry that you guys can use to have better understand the customer base. There's like Dun & Bradstreet and Hoover's, and I believe, and they can show you trends, what's going on in that industry, what's popular, what's hot. So it's a little research on your end, but keeping informed about what's going on. And then what's really great, and then like I said, the last thing I mentioned was your data from your website or your social media sites. A lot of that's free. Google Analytics is free to everyone. You do just have to put that code on your website, but it can understand the trends of like who's coming to your website, when are they coming, how long are they staying on your website, and what pages or pieces of content are they engaging on. So again, those are all different ways to kind of get information to kind of help understand your customers and understand what they want based on based on your customer data and based on the engagement that you have on your social media and websites.
Rebecca, I appreciate that. So you talk about the sources. So it said we have from our client data, from the client data and billing. We have the trends, things that are shared, that are out there, are known about competitors in the industry. And then we also have kind of the marketing data that we may have from email marketing or website or social media. So having the data is one part, but I think something that you deal with is not only about the collection, but it's the tabulation, it's the reporting. So tell us, we have the data now. We all have it, and you're probably using similar sources. What do we do with it? How can we make decisions with that data?
So it is, so yeah, like you said, there's tons of data. We got it on, that's how you can get it. Now it comes to kind of how do you organize it and put it into a way that works for you guys to do something with it. There are a couple things you can do. For a while we were using Excel, and we were just pulling in the tidbits of information that were of interest of us. So in looking at your website, okay, we were looking at, here's our trends for how we're doing currently, people that are coming to the, number of sessions to the website, time on site, engagement. And then we were kind of comparing that to, last year or the year before. So we get kind of the historical data to see how we're trending up or trending down, if that's the case, and what we need to improve. So what's really nice, a lot of that time we would, like I said, we mentioned Excel. So we would pull out those pieces of information that were most important, because I'm sure if everyone's aware, you can go to anywhere and see a ton of information, but you have to understand what's important for you to really see your results, and then what's important for your partners or your principal group to really just show them how things are going, and just pull those information. We pulled it into kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, and we're able to track that way. We do the same thing with the customer data or client data. We pull in the revenue amount and break it out by, in a spreadsheet, we break it out by industry and by service. So we can see by our various jobs, how are we performing in the government section, in the industry, or in the manufacturing section, in the not-for-profit. But then we can also see, okay, well, not only are we seeing how each industry is working, then we can see it based on service line, because government, that's municipalities, that's schools. We do a lot of audits, so we can see how we're improving in that category. We've recently added, we can add in consulting, we can do that as well. We're trying to focus a little bit more on consulting and our services. So we have a separate section for consulting services, and we've been tracking, okay, what did we do 2 years ago versus last year versus right now? And so it's pulling just those important data points and putting them into an Excel spreadsheet. Now that's a little bit manual and does take some time. The initial setup really is what takes the time, because you have to go through and think about what's important to you. And then, like I mentioned earlier, what's important to your partner group, and get the developed. Once it's developed, it should just be able to pull the report and plug in the data, so it won't be as time consuming. There are other tools that do automate it for you very nicely. There are CRM and marketing automation tools that kind of bring that client data together with your other content data. And so you can kind of see a little bit more detailed about what content's working, and then specifically who's engaging. So you can set up reports within those dashboards. And then the same thing if you're doing like a social media manager. There's Hootsuite's a big one. We use the one with Thomson Reuters. And again, that's another platform. So instead of going to LinkedIn and saying, oh, here's my results on LinkedIn on content, here's my results, I have to go to now Twitter, and here's my results. And now I have to go to Facebook and Instagram and so on and so on. It pulls it all in to one reporting section, and you can kind of set it up. Those do come at a little bit more of a cost, but they are really, it's time saving, so it does make up a little bit. There are various options and that you can choose from Hootsuite. I mean, they do have their free version, but to get that really in-depth analytics, you do have to pay for it. So it's just really, first, your job is to kind of figure out what's wanted, what's needed, and then kind of map it out into a spreadsheet is kind of a good start, I think, to understand.
Well, I like what you're talking, because the title of today's session is Your Data is Talking, and the data is always talking. It's out there and looking square in the face. But it's your data is talking, are you listening? And as you said, you really have to, I think it's important for the audience to understand, it's not just about having the data, but it's distilling and recognizing what's important to the firm, the practice group,
right?
What to do with it. So are you listening? Are you listening to what your data says? And that. Now, Rebecca, you focus on data. You deal with it on an everyday basis. There's some who are listening here that may say, well, data is new. I know it's there. I want to be able to leverage it, but I don't have someone dedicated to it. And this may seem overwhelming. Talk to that. Where's the continuum of, do I need to go out and make a pitch to hire someone, a data analyst, specific for my team, or how do I start and try to maybe hit on, whether someone's starting or someone's somewhat familiar with data?
Definitely. I think you don't need to, this position easily, it could be fulfilled because you can spend hours upon hours. That's kind of what's, kind of a little bit of a trap with data is you can spend hours upon hours just digging in. But there's still a way to do it without having to consume your already busy schedule, or to overwork you, or there is, or if you're looking, just trying to get an idea of what's out there before you want to bring in somebody else. I think the biggest thing would be to have that conversation about, to have a conversation to see what information, or, we always look at your ROI, but also your key performance indicators was kind of what the spreadsheet was I was mentioning earlier. So just take, all you have to do is to get started is just develop what those are, and then find an easy way to put that information in there, whether it's once a month. I mean, we should be looking at data a lot more, but if you're not already looking, set aside maybe 30 minutes just once a month to kind of look at, once you figure out what those KPIs are, plugging in that information, because it does not take long to go to your different sources and putting it in. And I think that's a good start, because once you get familiar with your just key performance indicators or your KPIs, then you can start digging a little bit deeper into what they really mean. But I would think it'd be good start off with finding out who your customers are, what industries, and a lot of us already have that. If you go to our, if you go to a lot of our websites for accounting firms, we have listed out our special industries. So figure out, well, what's the revenue coming from there, and then show the growth between year to year, month to month, and then I'm on site. And that way you can, and then look for just 30 minutes just to see the improvement, just to start. And by just looking at that and seeing improvement, you're going to start just questioning, or just getting a little bit, what else can I do, or what else can I look at? But I think it's good just to start with a few basic data points that really show what you're doing and how things are growing. And then it can lead to a lot more, but get comfortable with your basic KPIs so you can understand them and talk about them with your group, and then we'll be able to build on that.
Okay. One kind of nearing final question. You deal with data on a regular basis, and you understand the benefits of it, and analyzing it and taking it back to the partner group, and explaining how we can improve what you're doing with that. What is a project that you currently are working on or hoping to tackle as it relates to data? Where could data take you or take us? Maybe pie in the sky, but what is the potential of data with what you're doing, or what's out there?
Sure, and that's a great question. One of the things we introduced towards the end of last year was CRM and marketing automation. So what's been really nice for us is we're getting a lot of that same information about what's content and what's engaging. But now that we've added CRM and marketing automation, we can also see who's engaging. So we can see specifically who's coming to our website, where they're going, and how long they're spending, and you can do lead scoring and stuff like that. So a big project for me this year is to kind of take all that new information that we're getting and developing a new kind of reporting dashboard to share that new information. So as I mentioned, we're doing the spreadsheets in Excel, and we started up our basic KPIs, and here's how we're growing each month. And now we're tackling who specifically is engaging with us, and how do we share that information? We see that X, Y, and Z company is, spending this much time on our website and visited these 3 pages about these 3 really hot topics. So how do we set up that process to notify the partner or the principal about it? So I think the new one is, so now we're at the point where we had our basic information, we've been using it, we've been making decisions about it, sharing content based on that, but now we're ready for the next step. So we're going to build that out just a little bit more. So it was nice that we have a good foundation to start with, and now that we can add in new information is kind of building that upon that. So you don't want to constantly, so something to keep in mind is as you get familiar with your data, as I was mentioning before, you're still going to want to look at other things and grow, because it's going to tell you, there's still other things out there that can tell you more. And that's what we brought on with the CRM and marketing automation. So,
well, Rebecca, best of luck with that.
Nice
that sounds like it's really going to be
build upon what we've already had a foundation for.
Right. Well, good luck with that project. I mean, it sounds like it could be truly be a great project this year, but it sounds like it's going to be all hands on deck, and maybe we'll be able to do a follow up and hear how that's going. Was there anything else you'd like to,
I'd love to
cap off this series about data for the listeners? Any final words you'd like to give?
I think what I'll leave you guys with is the amount of data out there, as I mentioned, can be overwhelming, but I can't stress enough is because I've been there. I've gone in Google, and I think every time I go to Google Analytics, for example, I find a new report that looks at something else. So that's why I think it's important just to start with your just key points that really show, the growth or the various projects you're working on and how they have improved in your ROI, and just focus on those until you get a lot more comfortable, because I definitely have gone down that rabbit hole and I've looked at the clock and be like, oh, it's 2 hours later and I'm still looking at this data. So just stay focused on what you know and get comfortable with, and then slowly kind of look and see, okay, and might be a different report, or don't feel like you have to go in and look at there's so many different reports and ways, in these tools that they show you all this information. Just focus on what's most important, and then maybe kind of slowly, add in more things. So
great.
You don't get too overwhelmed.
Yes. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today. You've shared wonderful and great information. And I think hopefully whether people have experience with, analyzing and reporting with data, or just getting started, you've given them some tips that are really leverage it and take that and make sure that they're listening. But as you said, adapt it to what isn't pertinent and important for their firm and what they do. So thanks so much for sharing your time with us.
Oh, thank you. I've been happy to help.
This wraps up this episode of Amplify. Please watch it for another podcast from Association for Accounting Marketing next month. And don't forget, if you haven't started with data, or don't be overwhelmed, listen to what Rebecca said and just start with what's important to you, and make sure you're listening to the data that's talking. As always, remember to aim high. Power up, listening, we're always aiming high.